Well, we have seen the government recently announced that they were going to take a stake in Intel, and we are seeing more potential moves coming in the future for assets seen as strategic to the strength of America. But what we aren't seeing is a lot of pushback by leaders of various companies. They are staying silent over concern that their company maybe could be next. And this approach has both sides of the aisle a bit concerned. Pleasure to be joined right now by Philip Nichols, who's a professor of legal studies and business ethics here at the Wharton School, is also a professor of social responsibility in business. Phil, great to talk to you again. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Dan. It's always good to talk to you.
All right, so take us through what we've seen recently and give us your thoughts on some of these moves by the White House.
Sure. This is going to take a bit of time, but not much time. What we're seeing recently is part of a larger shift in the environment of business in the United States. And it's a huge, huge shift. The only thing I can compare it to in the last century is the New Deal. And that's basically what was once a fringe theory about presidential power, the unified executive theory, has now become the working way of thinking about the Constitution of the United States. And that's just this fundamental change. What it means is that we now have an executive who is immune to most forms of prosecution, almost all. It's hard to think of any that they aren't. We have a president who's not bounded by the authority of Congress. Congress no longer dictates how funds are to be allocated and how funds are to be spent, on what laws are to be enforced. And we have a Supreme Court that, in trying to figure out this unified theory, is giving a lot of latitude to the president, to the executive, in all kinds of arenas of the business world and the social and political world as well. But our concern is the business world. It took, after the many Supreme Court decisions that came late in the New Deal, it took decades to figure out what the new rules were. It also took, particularly after, ironically, another Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, it took decades to figure out the new social norms regarding the relationship between the executive and business. And so right now, one of the funny things about business people assessing risk is they have a team of lawyers who can tell you with really, really great accuracy the risks involved in taking action. Do this, this will happen. Don't do this, this will happen. We don't have the same kinds of teams regarding the risk with social rules, but people navigate social rules. Right now, we can't do either of those things. A business cannot assess the risk involved in taking action or not taking action with respect to the law, because the law is essentially being rewritten. And
Right.
it takes a while. It'll take a few decades.
How much of this then is the time that we are in when you think about the advent of AI and the impact of cryptocurrency and so many
Yeah,
of these new components
absolutely.
that have come into our world in the last 10 years?
Absolutely. And it's perhaps not a coincidence that this huge shift in law accompanies a huge shift in what we're able to do and how we're able to do it. But that only adds to the uncertainty about everything. The social rules in particular are being rewritten as social media takes over the way that we interact with one another. And so once again, as you point out, it's impossible to assess the risk. We just don't know.
So then is your expectation as we move forward here? Because we see this move around Intel. There's also the moves to receive revenue from NVIDIA over sales of chips from China. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said in an interview this morning that the Pentagon may start to look for these types of business partnerships. Is this going to be the new norm? Is that wall that was kind of there where the government stayed away from the private sector?
Yeah.
Has that been broken down now?
Yes, I would guess that it has been. I would compare this, and I don't want to get political. People make their choices, and that's great. But I would compare this to other regimes that have a powerful central authority without a check on it. And they tend to get heavily involved in business, and that isn't good for business. It reduces competition, it skews contracts in a particular way. It generally means that businesses are going to be smaller and more cautious in how they expand, how they innovate, how they do things.
What does this mean then for C-suite executives and how they have to approach not only running their business, but obviously the relationship they have with the government, and not only their government, but obviously if they're a multinational, governments around the world?
I would imagine that for that very reason, a lot of them will start moving their headquarters to more neutral places and then interact with the United States from someplace else. Because it's going to be really hard to grow and to navigate in the business environment that's being created now, particularly during a time of uncertainty.
Right. I think the interesting component, I'll finish up on this, is that as you look at it, some people see this as a protection of a lot of the businesses that are out there. Others will say that it's not that, and it's, getting your hand in the cookie jar when it really shouldn't be. How do you view what we're seeing play out right now?
That's a great. So if you look at other places and other times when this has happened, it may start out as, it doesn't always, but it may start out as we're doing something beneficial to our polity, our country, whatever. But it almost always devolves into the hand in the cookie jar. I mean, it just goes that direction eventually.
Phil, great to have you with us today. Thanks very much for your time and your insight. All the best. Thank you. You got it. Philip Nichols, who's a professor of legal studies and business ethics, as well as professor of social responsibility in business here at the Wharton School.